In this video, we'll compare Claude Code with Warp AI. We have 5 comparison criteria such as the code quality, the performance of the AI agent, the UI output, how the UI looks, the AI token usage, and scalability. We also have 3 tasks and 2 different projects. So let's start with the first task, which is about building a landing page for a full stack Next.js boilerplate. Before running the prompt, it's important to mention that we can do it simultaneously because both AI agents will work on the same code and then will run into issues. As a result, we'll start with Claude Code. Do you want to allow Claude to fetch this content? Yes, and don't ask again for GitHub. So Claude is asking us again if we allow it to make edits to the code. Let's say yes and don't ask again this session so Claude can make changes without having to give it permission. Okay, it seems that Claude finished the task. It took a while, so let's see what it did. Here we have a summary of everything it did, but let's run the application and see how it looks. This is how the landing page created by Claude looks like. It's very simple and minimalist. It looks like it's created with Bootstrap. We can say it's okay at best. We have a hero, some reasons why to choose this boilerplate, the technology stack and features included. So let's look at the first criterion. The first one is the code quality, which is about if the code is clean, readable and accurate, and if there is excessive complexity. So let's open the application and see. So here is the main code we are interested in that was generated by Claude. We can see that it extracted the technologies in an array, which is really good because they can be reused. The same thing about the features because it could have just used them, like add them in this HTML. So this is a good thing. And here we just have the landing page code. Here is mapping over the features. And like I said, it's a very good thing. Overall, the code is pretty okay. The design is not the best, but the code is alright. So the next criterion is the performance, how fast is the agent and how long does it take to complete the task. Let's see how can we find that with Claude. Claude Code wasn't very fast, but it wasn't slow either. It took around 3 minutes to complete the task, so we can say it's alright. And the next criterion is the AI token usage, like how many tokens did the tool use to complete the task. And Claude Code used 2 models. For this one, it used 31k tokens for the input and 487 for the output. And then for the Claude Sonnet, it used 47 tokens for the input and 8000 tokens for the output. And the last criterion is the scalability, which is about how well does it handle larger code bases. This boilerplate is not really a large code base and it did alright. Now let's try Warp. Similar to Claude Code, Warp asks us if it can run commands, so let's run it. Let's apply the changes. And one more thing about Warp, it displays the code changes in a format like an IDE. For example, you can refine it or you can straight edit the code in the terminal, which is really cool. Warp should have a similar option to allow it to make changes without you having to apply them all the time. Let's see if this is the one. Yep, as you can see, this says auto approve all agent actions for this task. So let's do that. Okay, and it looks like the landing page is done. So let's see how it looks like. This is the landing page created by Warp. So let's start with the first criterion, which is the code quality. Let's go to the code editor. So let's see how the code looks like. The usual HTML code. It uses the link component from next. It also adds comments. Unlike Claude Code, it added the array inside the HTML code and then it maps over it. Personally, I would prefer it to extract it in a separate constant like Claude Code, but it's still okay. And it does the same for the features, I guess. Yes, we could say the code is alright, not worse and not better than Claude Code. What I like about Warp is that it created a new route for the landing page, so it's localhost slash landing. The next criterion is the performance, how fast is the agent and how long did it take to complete the task. Here it says 5 minutes and 2 seconds, and I'm not sure if it includes the time it ran the application as well, or it's only the time it took to complete the task. Personally, it felt really quick, similar to Claude Code. When it comes to the token usage, Warp abstracts it, so what that means is that you need to monitor only your AI request usage. For this task of building the landing page, Warp made just 5 requests. Now let's go to the UI criterion, how the UI looks like. So the first thing we can see is that it uses different shades of the same color, which is really good. We have a proper hero that looks much better with buttons and everything. If we click on get started, it takes us to the login page, which now doesn't work because I closed the command that runs the app. We have a section with a tech stack and icons, hover and all that stuff. Here we have some features. We have a section on how to start the application and we also have the footer. I leave it up to you to judge which one looks better, but personally I like how the one created by Warp looks. The last criterion is the scalability. How well does it handle larger code bases? Similar to Claude Code, this app is not very large and I think it did well for this repo. Let's now move to the next task, which is about implementing file uploading in this Next.js project. We'll use TRPC and 2 official SDKs from AWS. This time, let's start with Warp. Okay, it seems that Warp finished making the changes, so let's check what it did. The most important thing is if the application runs with the new changes, so let's try that. So we got an error saying that it can't find this package. Let's install it. Now let's try again. And it seems we have an error. Let's see what that error is. Let's go over the code. First of all, it created a new file for the files router, which is really good. This is what I would have done as well. We have a get pre-signed upload URL procedure, which takes a file name, file type, and file size. Then we have a mutation, which validates the AWS config. Let's see what that is. It checks if the environment variables are present, and then it creates the S3 client. It throws an error if the environment variables are not set. It also throws an error if there is no S3 client. Then we have some allowed types. It checks if the file uploaded by the user is allowed. It generates unique file keys. Then it creates a new put object command, then gets the signed URL, and in the end it returns it. Okay, we also have a procedure for getting the download URL, which works in a similar way, and then we have a procedure for deleting files from S3. The last one, I suppose, is getting the public file URL, and then it imports the files router in the app router. So far so good. Let's look at the upload utils, which are some functions like checking the allowed file types, checking the file size, and so on. This is also the function for uploading to S3. Let's look at the component. This is the file upload component. This should import TRPC as far as I know. And then we have to change it here as well. And I think it should work now. Yep, as you can see, it works. And now that we can access the app, let me set the environment variables so we can actually test if it uploads the files to S3. Okay, now that I added the environment variables, let's see if we can upload a file. And let's try with drag and drop. You must be logged in to access this resource. Let's make this a public procedure, or maybe let's try to log in. Okay, the registration doesn't work, and this is not because of warp or anything. This is outside the scope of this. So let's go back to the demo upload and let's change this to be a public procedure. Can't read properties of undefined reading user. Yeah, we don't need this metadata, so let's delete it here as well. And for testing purposes, let's leave it like this. So the file was uploaded. We can see the size, and let's see what happens if we press the green check mark. Or maybe it's already uploaded. Let's check. And as we can see, the file was uploaded successfully in our bucket, so it works. So this wasn't an issue with the implementation from Warp, it was an issue with my auth system because the registration and login doesn't work properly, and the way Warp implemented it was to require user data, but it works fine. So let's rate the implementation. The first thing we are interested in is the code quality. If there are lots of duplications, excessive code and stuff like that. I like that it created the files router for S3 in a separate file, and then it imported that in the main app router, and then it added some defensive programming like checking if the environment variables exist, and if not, throwing an error. This is really good. It created the S3 client. I'm not really a fan of this type of code. This could have been an if statement, but I'm a bit picky. It also created some upload utilities, which is really good. This is the classic example you'll see on the internet for uploading files to S3. And then we have the file component. It's a bit complex. It added drag and drop and also the ability to add multiple files. It has lots of comments, which is really good. All in all, we can say the code is alright, not the best, not the worst. It can be polished and made simpler, but for one-shotting the feature, I'd say it's pretty okay. Now we'll rate how fast the agent was. Let's see if we can find how long it took. Implementing the file uploading feature with S3 took 22 requests and around 3 minutes to complete. And then the next criterion is the UI output. It's simple and to the point. You have the uploading form, you have the files uploaded shown here, you can delete it. It shows a green check mark if it was uploaded. Then you have some information on how this works, and then a section on the setup required. Personally, it's simple, but it does the job. I like it. And the last criterion is scalability, which is about how well it can handle multi-file editing. Like in this case, it had to read multiple files, create multiple files, and I'd say it did a pretty good job. All in all, I think Warp did a good job implementing this feature, although if I'd use this code, I'd have to do a little bit of cleanup, but that's expected. Now let's give the same prompt to Claude Code and see how it does. It seems that Claude Code is done. Now let's see if the app works. The app works, so let's see what's the page for uploading the files. It's slash upload, and we have the page for uploading the files. It kept the same design like the rest of the app, but first of all, before we try it, let's add the environment variables. Okay, let's test it. And we can see some information about the uploaded file, like the file name, the size, and the type. And let's see what happens if we click the upload file button. Okay, same thing like previously. Let's change that as well. Let's make it unprotected for now so we can test it. And let's refresh the page and upload the file again. Failed to generate pre-signed URL. And why is that? Yeah, probably because it uses this similar to the implementation from Warp. This is an issue with my app, not with Claude Code and Warp. Okay, successfully uploaded. Let's see if that's true. And it is. As you can see, it created a new folder and it added the file. So this one works as well. Now it's time to judge it. Let's look at the code quality. Similar to Warp, it created a new file for the files router where we get a pre-signed URL. We have the input from the uploaded file and then it creates a unique key. It creates the put object command, gets the signed URL, and then it returns the URL and some information about the file like the file key and file name. So it didn't create other procedures like Warp. We don't have a procedure to delete the file or to get the public URL and so on. It's also more simple, no defensive programming, checking if environment variables are set or stuff like that. It's more simple and to the point, and then it imports the files router here. It creates a component and it uses the files router. Then we have the handle upload file and the page for uploading the file. So the code generated by Claude Code is a lot simpler and to the point. What I like most about it is that it uses the files router instead of using a separate function like the one from Warp. This is how I would have done it as well, but at the same time I don't like it that it didn't create that many utility functions for defensive programming to check for file size, if the file exists, or if the environment variables are set, and so on. So yeah, both have pros and cons, but I'd say that the code generated by Claude Code is a bit better. The next criterion is the agent performance. If I'm not mistaken, this took 1 minute, almost 2 minutes, and let's see, Warp. Implementing the file uploading feature with S3 took 3 minutes to complete, but both generated the code in reasonable times. The next one is the UI output. How well does the output look? Personally, I like the one from Warp more because it had drag and drop as well, and not only that, but it looked better from my point of view. Your opinion might differ, but in my opinion it looked better. Then we have the AI token usage criterion. Here we can see it in Claude Code, and for this model we have 2.8k for input and 113 for the output, and for Claude Sonnet it used 377 for the input and 6600 for the output. As mentioned earlier, Warp abstracts away the token usage and it only shows the requests. In this case, Warp made 22 requests to finish the feature. And lastly, we have the scalability criterion. How well does it handle larger code bases, like how well it works with multi-files editing, and similar to Warp, it did a really good job. There is not much to say, it just handled the changes well. It was able to understand and create different files, edit multiple files, and it did a good job. And we'll close the video with a third task and the simplest one. So let's start with Warp. Alright, and Warp finished the task, and you may think this is a very simple task, but it's a very useful one because in big projects it's not as easy as running npm install and then npm run to run a project. So let's see what Warp did. It gives us a project overview, which is really good. We can understand the client, the server, and some key features, and then it tells us how to run the project, and it tells us all the setup instructions, the steps we have to follow, like starting the database, running the database migrations, generate the Prisma client, and so on. And then we also get the URLs where to access the application. We get stuff like environment variables, project structure, and so on. And at the end, it asks you what you want to do next, and you can tell it to run the project and so on. For me, this looks really good and it's really helpful in big projects. And now let's give Claude Code a go and see how it does. Claude Code finished as well, but it gives us a very short answer. We don't have anything about the project, and if I remember correctly, the prompt is, yeah, explain this project. It didn't explain the project, the technologies, some of the features and stuff like that. Maybe just a short line here. So yeah, it's able to run the project, but it didn't follow the prompt correctly. So I'd say Warp did a better job here. So I'd like to close the video with a few conclusions. The first one is that Warp does a much better job at creating user interfaces. The ones created by Warp are more modern, more comprehensive, and just better overall. However, when it comes to Claude Code, it can take the edge in some cases because the code is more to the point, to say so. Although what I like about Warp is that it anticipates edge cases and has a better defensive programming mechanism, to say so. For example, in our S3 task, it checked for the file size, for the allowed file types, if the environment variables are checked, and I really like that. And this is about the code quality. When it comes to the performance, both are pretty fast. They are completing the tasks quite fast, to say so. So yeah, these are my conclusions on Claude Code versus Warp. You are free to draw your own conclusions.